At a family reunion, my dad laughed and said, "We only kept you because abortion was expensive back then." Everyone laughed. I walked out without a word. When they later tried to cut me out of the trust, I came back with receipts that shattered their perfect image. Hey, Reddit. I grew up as the designated family afterthought, ignored, mocked, treated like the backup plan they never wanted. So I finally said, screw it. I built a life on my own terms and disappeared. Turns out, they didn't appreciate that. Before everything exploded, here's how it all began. More than 50 people were packed around those long plastic tables you rent from party supply places, the kind that always wobble no matter how carefully you set them up. Kids ran in endless circles clutching juice boxes, and the adults got louder as the sun sank and the boxed wine ran out. I'd already been at the reunion for 3 days, hauling coolers and grilling burgers after the designated guy bailed. Now I stood off to the side holding a Coke I hadn't touched in 20 minutes, just trying to exist without being noticed. That's when my dad climbed onto a wooden bench. He was 3 drinks deep, face flushed, shirt untucked, wearing that loose grin he gets when he thinks he's being charming. He clinked his glass with a fork until the noise died down. All right, he boomed. Can I get everyone's attention? Phones immediately came out. My brother Blake looked smug, arms crossed, like he already knew where this was going. He was 31, successful in the kind of way that requires zero effort, when your dad hands you a VP title and a company car. My sister Vanessa flipped her hair and struck a pose for someone's camera. She made a living posting pictures of her breakfast and calling it content. And then there was me. Connor. 26. The youngest by 5 years. The one they hadn't planned for. I'd heard the whispers growing up. Not trying for a third. Almost didn't keep him. They never said it to my face, at least not until I was 12 and overheard my dad during a fight about money. If we didn't have to pay for Connor's stuff, we'd have more saved up. That was the moment I learned what I was to them, a line item, an expense, the budget problem. Still, I tried. I stayed quiet. Got decent grades. Went to a state college on a partial scholarship. Found a job doing commercial drone photography, something practical that actually paid. I covered my own bills, stayed out of trouble, asked for nothing. I thought that if I didn't rock the boat long enough, I might earn some respect. I was wrong. Dad cleared his throat and scanned the crowd. I assumed this would be another harmless speech about family and memories. Then he reached out, grabbed my shoulder, and pulled me into the center of everything. And this guy, he said, laughing. This guy right here. I smiled, awkward but trying to play along. This one's our little miracle, Dad continued, his voice carrying across the entire backyard. Well, more like an accident that didn't end too badly. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. My jaw tightened, but I kept my smile locked in place. Yep, he went on, grinning wider now, feeding off the reaction. The oops baby. The mistake we decided to keep. The backyard exploded. My uncle nearly sprayed beer across the table. My aunt actually clapped, like she just heard the best joke of the year. Blake snorted into his glass, shaking his head as if Dad had just landed the punchline to a perfectly built setup. Someone yelled, "At least you kept the receipts," and the laughter doubled. But hey, Dad continued, riding the wave. He didn't end up in prison or living in our basement, so I'd call that a parenting win, right? The crowd lost it. People were howling. Someone was filming on their phone. I could see the screen from where I stood, the little red recording aimed at me like a sniper's sight. I looked around. Only 2 people seemed uncomfortable. My cousin Amy caught my eye and silently mouthed, "I'm so sorry," from across the yard, but she didn't say it out loud. Nobody did. I stepped back slowly. Dad was already moving on, raising a toast to Blake's latest promotion, something about a 6-figure bonus and a company retreat to Cancun. No one even glanced in my direction. I set my Coke down on the nearest table and walked into the house. No dramatic exit, no slammed doors. I just left the way I'd learned to leave, quietly. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of the guest bed and listened to their laughter drift through the open window. The fire pit crackled. Someone turned on music. The party rolled on like I'd never existed. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't new. This was the role they'd assigned me 26 years ago, and nothing I'd ever done had changed it. I was the punchline. The footnote. The comparison piece they kept around to make everyone else look better. I thought about Blake's graduation party when I was 16. Dad rented out an entire restaurant, gave a speech about how proud he was, handed Blake the keys to a used Lexus. When I graduated 5 years later, we had cake in the kitchen, and Dad asked if I'd figured out what I was doing with my life yet. I remembered asking to borrow $1,500 for textbooks my senior year and getting a lecture about financial responsibility and bootstraps. Meanwhile, Vanessa got a fully funded trip to Italy to find herself. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and did the math. $8,000 in savings. Another $2,000 in checking. I lived cheap, drove a used Civic, and carried no debt. I could leave. Right now. I stood up, grabbed my wallet and charger from the nightstand, and walked downstairs. The party was still raging. No one noticed me crossing the yard to my car. No one waved. No one called my name. I got in, started the engine, and drove. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't pack my suitcase. I didn't leave a note. I just left. By the time I crossed the state line, I already knew I wasn't coming back. I drove until the world opened up into nothing but sky and truck stops. Somewhere in Wyoming, I made my decision. Portland. I arrived with about $10,000 total between savings and checking. I found a studio apartment in Southeast Portland for $1,200 a month and paid 3 months upfront in cash. The first thing I did was erase myself. I deleted every social media account, got a new phone number, set up a new email, and changed my professional name online to C. Brennan so casual searches wouldn't pull me up. Then I started looking for work. My background was commercial drone operations and aerial photography, a specialized niche that requires a Part 107 license from the FAA. I built a simple website, sent out cold emails, and 3 days later I got my first response. A small firm needed aerial footage. I quoted $500. They agreed. Word spread fast. By the 4th month, I was booked solid. Within 6 months, I was pulling in $5,000 a month, sometimes 6. I could pay rent, eat real food, and actually sleep at night. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being compared to Blake or Vanessa. Nobody knew who I was or where I came from. Any guilt I'd felt about leaving disappeared the moment I remembered how easily they threw money at Blake and Vanessa, while I got lectures for asking about textbooks. About 8 months in, I started renting a desk at a co-working space downtown. That's where I met Kate. She sat across from me, always wearing band t-shirts under blazers. She worked as an HR consultant for small businesses. We started with small talk over coffee, which turned into real conversations. She asked what I did, and when I told her about the drone work, she thought it was cool. She didn't joke about it being a hobby or ask when I was getting a real job. A week later, I asked her to dinner. She said yes. It was easy with her. No drama, no games. She didn't pry into my family history. She just saw me. No one had ever done that before. 2 years passed. Work stayed steady. Money stayed steady. Kate stayed steady. Still, some nights I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, the sound of 50 people laughing at my expense echoing in my head. Then, one Wednesday morning, I stepped out of my apartment and saw a man in khakis standing next to a sedan across the street. He looked straight at me. Connor Brennan? I didn't move. Who's asking? He walked over and handed me a manila envelope. You've been served. Then he got back into his car and drove away. So much for disappearing. All it takes is a private investigator and a paper trail. Lease agreements, utilities, DMV records, and suddenly you're easy to find. I stood there on the sidewalk, jaw tight, eyes steady. Then I went back inside and sat at my kitchen table. The papers were formal and precise: a trust restructuring petition, a legal notice from a law firm in Ohio representing the Brennan family trust, requesting a hearing to declare me legally unreachable for the purposes of estate planning and asset distribution. Translation: they were trying to write me out of the will by claiming I'd abandoned all contact. Attached was a letter from Blake. Typed, formal, and dripping with fake concern. Connor, we've tried to reach you multiple times over the past 2 years. Dad's health is declining, and we need to finalize the family trust. If you don't respond within 10 days, we'll have no choice but to proceed with a restructuring that excludes you from beneficiary status. The court hearing is scheduled for 18 days from now. This is your final notice. I read it twice. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Jennifer Park, a corporate attorney I'd met months earlier. She'd handed me her card in passing. I'd tossed it into a drawer, never imagining I'd actually need it. That afternoon, I showed up at her office with the envelope in hand. She read everything in silence while I sat across from her desk. "They're building an unreachability case," she said finally. "Basic move. If they convince a judge you've ignored contact attempts, they can restructure the trust without you. Can they pull it off? Not if we move fast. The hearing's in 18 days. We respond through counsel and demand full disclosure. That undercuts their entire argument." "How much?" $500 for now. I paid her on the spot. She drafted the response within 24 hours and sent it certified. Connor Brennan is represented by counsel, is reachable, and requests full trust documentation. All future contact is to go through her office. Once Jennifer entered the case, the judge immediately pushed the hearing back. Blake's little countdown clock evaporated. 2 days later, my phone started lighting up with unknown numbers. Somehow, they'd gotten my new line. "Skip trace, probably." Blake left a voicemail, his voice tight. "Come on, man. Dad's sick. Stop hiding behind a lawyer and call me." Vanessa followed, crying. "Please, Connor. This is tearing Mom apart." I deleted every voicemail without listening all the way through. Then things escalated. That Monday, Marcus, the CEO of my biggest client, called. "Connor, can you come in? We need to talk." His tone told me everything. At his office, he shifted in his chair before speaking. "I got a call from someone claiming to be your brother. He said you're having a mental health crisis. Asked if we'd noticed any unusual behavior." Heat crawled up my neck, but I kept my voice steady. "What exactly did he say?" "That you cut off your family suddenly, that you've been acting erratically, and that they're worried you might be unstable." "What did you tell him?" "That we don't discuss contractors with outsiders." "But I wanted you to know." It felt like fishing. "I appreciate it," I said. "I'm fine. Family issues are personal, not medical. If they call again, refer them to my attorney." I slid Jennifer's card across his desk. "You've been solid for us," he said. "I'm not concerned." "Good." Outside, I called Jennifer immediately. "They're moving into defamation," I said. "Blake told my biggest client I'm mentally unstable." "Get Marcus to confirm everything in writing," she replied. "We're documenting a pattern of harassment." 2 more clients got concerned family calls that same afternoon. One ghosted me completely. The other asked, carefully, whether I was still safe to hire. Jennifer logged both. 3 days later, I got locked out of my bank account. 7 password reset attempts, all originating from Ohio. The account was frozen. I restored access, added 2-factor authentication, set verbal passwords. Jennifer logged that too. That weekend, someone broke into my car. The glove box was dumped, the center console emptied, the trunk popped open. Nothing was taken. It wasn't theft, it was a search. The cops shrugged. No cameras. No leads. I installed a security camera, changed my locks, and bought a dash cam. Then Jennifer sent a formal cease and desist outlining the harassment pattern. That night, Kate came over and found me sitting on the couch, staring at my laptop. "What's going on?" she asked. I told her everything: the reunion, the speech, disappearing, the legal papers, the campaign to destabilize my life. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "So what's the play?" I exhaled. "They want me cornered and unstable on paper. So I go back, but on my terms. I control the narrative. Make them play defense." "When?" "Soon. I need intel first." She opened her laptop. "Then we start now." We spent hours digging through public records. Hartwell Manufacturing, a mid-size industrial supply company in Ohio. My grandfather built it after the war. My dad expanded it in the 80s. Blake was listed as VP of Operations. Then we found the real problem. 5 years ago, Hartwell had taken on outside investors. Meridian Capital, a Chicago firm, owned 18%, enough to demand answers. Recent filings showed missed delivery deadlines. Revenue down 15%. 3 senior staff gone with no replacements. "They're bleeding," Kate said. "Blake's definitely hiding it." She looked at me. "If you go back, they'll paint you as the problem." "I know. So what's the move?" The answer landed cleanly. I become the solution. The next morning, Jennifer filed a formal discovery request, full trust terms, proposed changes, everything. They folded within 3 weeks. A thick envelope landed on her desk, 47 pages of legal history and lawyer speak. I sat across from her while she flipped through it. "Here," she said. "They can't remove you without incapacity, renunciation, or a documented 6-month record of unreachability. They don't have any of that. You're safe. Unless you sign something or they want an all-out legal war, they lose," she continued. "And now that the hearing's delayed, they've lost their timeline advantage. They were counting on you not showing up. That's leverage point number 1. But I needed more. I thought of Greg, the operations manager at Hartwell. Solid guy. Allergic to office politics. Completely done with Blake. I sent him a careful LinkedIn message asking if things had really gotten worse. He replied within 2 hours. You have no idea. We switched to encrypted chat. He told me they'd lost their 3 biggest clients and morale was so bad people were job hunting during lunch breaks. I asked him if he had documentation. He hesitated. Why? I asked. I told him I was coming back and that I needed proof. Another long pause. If this traces back to me, I'm done. I assured him it wouldn't. Everything would go through my attorney. He sent the files that night. Employee complaints. Vendor emails about late payments. Ignored safety reports. A chaotic production schedule. A resignation letter from a 20-year veteran explicitly blaming Blake's incompetence. Every document told the same story: Blake broke something, then blamed someone else. I forwarded everything to Jennifer. This is enough to blow him out of the boardroom, she said. Used correctly, his credibility is gone. That's the plan. But there was one more angle I needed to shut down: the unstable runaway story Blake had been feeding everyone. Kate solved it in one sentence. We were at her apartment when she looked at me and said, "If we're doing this, we do it right. Meaning we get married before you go back." I blinked. She didn't. Blake's entire argument depends on you being a lone, unstable drifter, she continued. You show up married to a successful HR consultant? Narrative dead. It kills their angle completely. Exactly. Then she softened. And we were going to do it anyway. Strategic timing, and because I love you. I laughed for the first time in weeks. We got married at the courthouse 2 weeks later. A small ceremony, just us and 2 witnesses Kate knew from work. No family. No spectacle. It was ours, private, the exact opposite of everything my family stood for. From there, we divided roles. Kate took point on operations. She was built for systems, processes, and thinking 3 steps ahead. Jennifer built the legal wall. I built the pitch. We rehearsed until there were no gaps. This wasn't a vague idea about modernizing the company. It was a full strategic plan for Hartwell Manufacturing's operational restructuring and market repositioning. 40 pages, an executive summary, market analysis, competitive assessment, revenue projections, operational improvements, and a 3-year implementation timeline. I wasn't walking in blind. I'd worked summers on that factory floor and learned the workflows. I'd spent 2 years running my own operation where mistakes cost real money. Through Jennifer, I sent a short, direct letter. I am available for a meeting to discuss the trust restructuring and my potential involvement in Hartwell Manufacturing's operations. I will be in Ohio the week of October 15th. I require full access to company financials, board meeting minutes, and current operational reports. I will be accompanied by my wife and my attorney. Blake called Jennifer's office within 90 minutes. Tell him to stop being dramatic and just come home like a normal person. Jennifer's response was flawless. Mr. Brennan is happy to meet under the terms outlined in his letter. If those terms are not acceptable, we'll see you in court. 3 days later, they sent the documents. Kate and I spent a full week going through every page. The financial picture was worse than we'd thought. Revenue was down 22% over 3 years. Operating margins were squeezed to almost nothing. Major clients were gone, with no replacement revenue in sight. Employee turnover had hit 43% in the past 18 months. But the board minutes were even more damning. Blake had been lying to them, consistently. He blamed missed targets on supply chain issues that didn't exist. He claimed employee departures were retirements when they were actually people fleeing his management. He covered up safety violations and failed inspections. The board was frustrated, but paralyzed. Blake was the owner's son. He had my father's ear, and no one wanted to start a family war. They weren't looking for proof anymore. They were waiting for permission. I was going to be that permission. 1 week before we flew out, I got an email from Vanessa. Subject: Can we talk? I showed it to Kate. Could be a trap, she said. Probably is, I agreed. Set up a meeting. Public place. You come with me. If it feels off, we leave. Kate replied from her own email address. Connor's wife here. He's willing to meet. Coffee shop on neutral ground. I'll be present. No surprises. Vanessa agreed. We flew to Ohio on a Tuesday. Rented a car. Checked into a hotel near the airport. We didn't tell anyone we were in town. The meeting was set for Wednesday afternoon at a downtown Starbucks. We pulled into the parking lot 15 minutes early. Kate scanned the area. Black sedan, 3 spots down, she said quietly. Someone sitting in the driver's seat. I looked. I couldn't see the face through the tinted windows, but the posture felt familiar. Blake, Kate said. Want to abort? I thought about it. No. Let's see what game they're playing. Vanessa was already inside. She looked different and thinner, less polished. She saw Kate and hesitated. Who's this? My wife, I said, sitting down. Vanessa blinked. You got married? 2 months ago. I didn't bother with pleasantries. What do you want, Vanessa? She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Look, I know this looks bad, but I wanted to warn you. Blake's planning something for the board meeting. He's got Dad to sign some documents that. Is Blake outside right now? Kate cut in. Vanessa's face betrayed her. Just a flicker, but it was enough. I don't know what you're talking about. Kate pulled out her phone and showed her a photo she'd just taken of the sedan in the parking lot. The timestamp was clearly visible. "You're wired," Kate said flatly. "Or you were supposed to get Connor to say something they can use. Which is it?" Vanessa's eyes went wide. "I'm not. I was just trying to." "We're done here." Kate stood. "Connor, let's go." I didn't move right away. I looked directly at Vanessa. "You know what the sad part is?" I said quietly. "I actually thought you might be different." "Connor, I am helping." No, I cut her off. "You're protecting your own interests." "Same as always." I stood up and walked out with Kate. In the car, she was already texting Jennifer. "Documented attempt to bait you into an on-record statement," she said. "Sloppy." "They're desperate," I said. "Good," she replied. "Desperate people make mistakes." We drove back to the hotel. My jaw was tight, tongue pressed against my molars, but my hands were steady on the wheel. "You okay?" Kate asked.
Yeah.
I just needed to see it for myself. She squeezed my hand. "You've got me. And we're going to bury them." Jennifer called that night. "The Vanessa setup gives us everything we need," she said. "If they keep contacting you directly after council notice, I'll move for a protective order. Judges hate games like this." Meanwhile, once Jennifer formally responded, their petition was withdrawn. The unreachability argument died on the spot. 3 days later, my cousin Amy sent the reunion video to Kate's inbox. No message. Just the file. I watched it once. Saw my dad pull me forward. Heard the laughter explode. Saw myself standing there, frozen, while 50 people laughed at my expense. I saved it to 3 different drives. We booked a refundable return flight for Friday night, just in case. Friday morning, I put on a suit for the first time in 2 years, dark gray, tailored. Kate wore a black blazer and carried a leather folder. We didn't go to the company first. We went to the hospital. My dad was in a private room on the 4th floor, recovering from his second stroke. I walked in without knocking. He was awake, propped up in bed, thinner than I remembered. His eyes went wide when he saw me. He tried to speak, but nothing came out except a weak rasp. I sat in the chair beside his bed. Kate stayed by the door. "Don't talk," I said. "Just listen." He nodded, barely. "I'm back because you and Blake tried to erase me legally," I continued. "Not because I forgive you. Because I won't let you cut me out of the trust after what you did at that reunion." His hand twitched on the blanket. "I'm going to save your company. I'm going to fix everything Blake broke. And when this is over, you're going to understand exactly what you threw away when you called me a mistake in front of 50 people. I stood. "One more thing. That speech, I have the video. If Blake tries anything, it goes public. Your legacy becomes the man who humiliated his own child for laughs." I paused. "Your choice." I walked out without waiting for a response. Kate was quiet until we reached the car. "That was cold," she said. "Good." Our next stop was the family house, a big colonial in the suburbs, the same place I grew up. I rang the doorbell instead of using my old key. Blake opened the door. He looked older than his voicemail had sounded. Thinner hair. Shoulders tight with stress. He tried to play it casual. "Took you long enough. Where's the documentation I asked for?" I said. He blinked. "What?" "The financial reports. The board minutes. The operational assessments." "Where is it?" "Come on, man. Let's sit down first. Talk like normal people." "Try again." He hesitated, then stepped aside, clearly irritated. "It's in Dad's office." I walked past him. Dad's office looked like a disaster zone. Papers were stacked everywhere, files in crooked piles, coffee rings on every surface. This was Blake's workspace now. This chaos was how he operated. I started photographing everything. Financial statements. Vendor contracts. Employee files. Blake appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Documenting." "You can't just." "I can. I'm a beneficiary of the family trust. I have legal standing. If you want to stop me, call your lawyer." He didn't. I spent 2 hours going through everything. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Revenue was down 28% over 3 years, not the 22% they'd reported to the board. Blake had been massaging the numbers. 3 major clients lost in the past 6 months alone. One of them, Patterson Industrial, had been with Hartwell for 30 years. They'd left a scathing email explaining why, missed deadlines, poor communication, and Blake personally insulting their procurement manager during a call. Employee turnover wasn't 43%. It was 51%. Blake had been reclassifying terminations as voluntary departures. I photographed everything and sent it to Jennifer and Kate in real time. Blake hovered behind me. "Look, I know things haven't been perfect, but you don't understand the pressure I've been under." I looked up from the files, careful not to give him anything to grab onto. "You've been lying to the board. I've been managing expectations. You falsified quarterly reports. I smoothed out some inconsistencies. You lost Patterson Industrial because you called their guy an idiot." His face went red. He was trying to renegotiate prices in the middle of a contract. "You lost a 30-year client." He stepped into the office. "You know what? Screw you. You ran away. You disappeared for 2 years. You don't get to come back here and act like you know anything." I stood, closed the folder. "Everything goes through my attorney. We're done talking." I walked past him and out to the car, where Kate was waiting. "How bad?" she asked. "Worse than we thought." The next day, I met Robert, one of the minority investors from the Chicago holding company. He'd been trying to get answers about Hartwell's performance for months, and Blake had been stonewalling him. We met at a restaurant downtown. I brought the dossier. Robert flipped through it in silence, his expression darkening with every page. "This is worse than we thought," he said finally. "Blake's been covering it up, firing anyone who complains." He looked at me. "Can you fix it?" I slid the business proposal across the table. "I can. But I need a board seat and operational control." He read the first few pages, nodding slowly. "This is solid. I've had time to think." Then he smiled. "I'll bring this to the board meeting. But you'll need to present it yourself." "Absolutely." I visited the manufacturing floor and talked to employees. The pattern was obvious. Blake had been cutting corners, delaying safety upgrades, and ignoring maintenance schedules. I met with Paul, one of our key vendors. I told him change was coming and asked him to hang on a little longer. "You're the brother, right?" he asked. "The one who disappeared."
Yeah.
"Why should we trust you?" "Because I actually know how to run a business," I said. "And because I'm not Blake." He laughed. "Good enough for me." We extended our hotel stay. I wasn't leaving Ohio again until the board vote was done. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 weeks later. When the day came, Kate, Jennifer, and I arrived early. We'd prepared non-stop for 3 days. Blake showed up 15 minutes late, looking rattled. He tried to take the head seat at the table. Robert gestured to a different chair. "Connor's presenting first." Blake's face flushed, but he sat. I stood and began. No pleasantries. No apologies. Just facts. I walked them through the revenue decline, the client losses, vendor complaints, employee turnover, and safety violations. Then I showed them Blake's attempts to cover it up, emails where he blamed employees for his mistakes, documents he'd falsified, vendors he'd threatened. The room went silent. Then I presented the solution, the modernization plan, the vendor stabilization strategy, the employee retention program. I ended with the organizational restructure, Blake removed from operations, new executive oversight, and an external audit. And who runs this new structure? One board member asked. I do, I said. As acting COO, with full operational authority. Blake exploded. You can't be serious. He's been gone for 2 years. He doesn't know anything about this company. Another board member spoke up, Henry Walsh, one of the older investors who'd been close to my grandfather. Connor left because he wasn't wanted. Blake made that clear. Now Blake's run the company into the ground, and Connor's offering to fix it. Where's the problem? Blake turned on him. You're going to believe the runaway son over. I'm believing the numbers, Walsh said calmly. And the resignation letters. And the vendor complaints. Your brother documented everything. Kate spoke for the first time, her voice steady and precise. The operational restructuring plan includes external oversight and quarterly audits. If Connor fails to meet benchmarks, the board can remove him. Blake had no such accountability. The mood in the room shifted. 2 other board members nodded. I looked at Blake. You've run it into the ground. That's enough. Robert stood. I moved to approve Connor's proposal in full. Another board member immediately seconded it. All in favor? 6 hands went up. Out of 8. Blake stared at them, stunned. Dad's not going to approve this. Dad already did, Robert said. We met with him yesterday. He signed the transfer of authority that morning. Blake looked like he'd been hit by a truck. He stood so fast his chair clattered backward. You can't just. Kate signaled toward the back of the room. Security stepped in behind Blake. Sit down, I said quietly. Screw you. Sit down, or security will escort you out. Your choice. He looked around the table. No one came to his defense. Slowly, he sat. The meeting continued for another hour. Details were finalized. Timelines were set. Blake didn't say another word. As we filed out, he tried to corner me in the hallway. You think you won? He hissed. You're still the same screw-up you've always been. I met his stare. No, Blake. I'm the guy who just took your job. That's the difference. I walked away. Kate was waiting by the elevator. How do you feel? She asked. Tired, I said. But good. In the first 2 weeks, I paid off every vendor we owed, cleared about $83,000 in backed up invoices, and brought in an outside safety consultant to audit the facility. The consultant arrived on a Tuesday morning. Phil Rodriguez, former OSHA inspector, now independent. He spent 3 hours on the floor with a clipboard and a camera, then found me in my office around noon. You've got 30 days to fix 17 violations, he said, sliding the report across my desk. 3 of them are shutdown level if they aren't addressed. I scanned the list. Faulty ventilation in the paint booth. Emergency exits blocked by storage. A fire suppression system for years overdue for inspection. How much to fix everything? I asked. Ballpark? $120,000. I didn't hesitate. Draw up the specifications. I'll authorize it today. He blinked. Just like that? Just like that. Blake let this place fall apart because fixing problems costs money. I'd rather spend money than watch someone get hurt. He nodded slowly. All right. I'll have the specs to you by Friday. Week 3, I flew to Patterson Industrial. 4-hour meeting. I walked them through every operational change we'd made. They agreed to a trial contract, 6 months at reduced volume, but it was a start. By month 3, people were actually talking to each other again. 2 employees who'd quit under Blake called to ask about openings. Kate rebuilt the employee handbook, set up proper grievance procedures, and trained the management team. Revenue began to stabilize. Client relationships improved. Blake left the company quietly. No announcement. Just gone. By month 8, we were profitable again. Then Blake made his last move. I was in a vendor meeting when Kate walked in, her face tight. Blake just sent an email to the entire staff, she said. He's claiming you forced him out illegally, and that the company is about to fail. I read the email. It was desperate and sloppy, full of vague accusations that went nowhere. Forward it to Jennifer, I said, and send a company-wide response. 10 minutes later, every employee received a message from HR addressing the unauthorized email and confirming that the matter had been referred to legal. My phone rang. It was Robert. Meridian Capital just got a call from Blake, he said, his voice tight. He's claiming the operational changes are destroying the company and that we need to intervene. He's trying to get us to reverse the board decision. What did you tell him? I told him to review our Q2 numbers and then go away. We're up 18% since you took over. He's done. I called Jennifer immediately. Defamation, interference with business operations, and now contacting investors to undermine company leadership. She didn't hesitate. That's a pattern. Do you want me to file? Send him a final cease and desist, I said. Make it clear that if he contacts anyone associated with this company again, we pursue charges immediately. He wasn't dumb enough to ignore it. The emails stopped. The calls stopped. Blake disappeared completely. A week later, he showed up. 8 months after the board vote, I was in the middle of a strategy meeting when my assistant knocked on the door. Someone's here to see you, she said. Says it's urgent. I looked up. Who? Blake Brennan. The room went silent. Kate, sitting across from me, raised an eyebrow. Want me to have security remove him? My assistant asked. I considered it. Send him in. Blake walked through the door, and I barely recognized him. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 8 months. His hair was thinner, gray at the temples. He'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. His clothes were wrinkled, his shoes scuffed. He looked around the conference room. 6 people stared back at him, Kate, Greg, Robert, and 3 other senior staff members. Can we talk? Blake asked, his voice rough. Alone? No, I said. Anything you want to say, you can say in front of everyone here. His jaw clenched. Fine. I need a job. No one moved. You need a job? I repeated.
Yeah.
I've been applying everywhere for 6 months. Nobody's hiring me. I'm out of money. The house is in foreclosure. I need work. I leaned back in my chair. And you came here? Your family. No, I said. We're relatives. There's a difference. His face flushed. Come on, Connor. I'm asking for help. Like the way you helped me when I asked to borrow $1,500 for textbooks. When I told you to get a job and stop being lazy. That was different, he said quickly. How? He opened his mouth, then closed it. I was young. I didn't understand. You were 28. I was 21, I said. You understood just fine. You just didn't care. Kate spoke up then. She slid a document across the table, a printed timeline detailing every harassment attempt, every defamatory call, every documented action Blake had taken since he'd been removed. You called his clients and told them he was mentally unstable, she said calmly. His accounts were hit with password resets originating from Ohio, and his car was broken into right after your call started. The timing speaks for itself. You emailed our staff trying to sabotage the company, and you contacted our investors to undermine his authority. Blake looked down at the document, then back at her. Who the hell are you? His wife, she replied, steady and unflinching, and the person who documented every single thing you did. Blake turned to me. Look, I screwed up, but I'm desperate. I need something. Anything. I'll take a floor position. I don't care. I didn't answer right away. Why would I hire you? Because I know this business. I grew up in it. You ran it into the ground in 3 years, I said evenly. You lied to the board. You destroyed client relationships. You fired good people because they made you look bad. Why would I let you anywhere near this company? His voice cracked. Because I have nowhere else to go. I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the production floor, people working, machines humming, the place alive again. Then I turned back to him. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of this building. You're going to figure out your life on your own, the same way I had to after you and Dad spent 26 years making me feel like I didn't belong in my own family. You're going to get a job somewhere else. You're going to work for someone who doesn't know your name. You're going to build something for yourself instead of coasting on what other people built for you. I can't, he said. And you're never going to contact me, my wife, or anyone at this company again, I continued. If you show up here, I'll have you trespassed. If you contact any of my employees, I'll file a restraining order. He stood there, breathing hard. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You know what Dad used to say about you? He said you were weak. That you'd never amount to anything. I smiled. How's that working out for him? Blake stared at me for a few seconds, then turned and walked out. Kate was already on her phone. Security confirmed, she said. Trespass notice filed. Building access revoked. Another pause. HR memo sent. All staff notified. No one spoke for a full minute. Then Greg broke the silence. That was brutal.
Yeah,
I said. Kate stood, came over, and rested a hand on my shoulder. You okay? I'm good. I looked around the room. All right. Where were we? Robert cleared his throat. Operations review. The meeting continued. An hour later, after everyone else had left, Kate and I stood by the window overlooking the production floor. You know he's going to tell people you're heartless, she said. Probably. Does that bother you? I watched the floor below, people working together, communicating, building something real. No. The people whose opinions matter know the truth. She smiled. Good answer. Besides, I added, I'm not heartless. I'm just done being their backup plan. Kate leaned against me. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, trespass order confirmed with local PD. He's done. We left the building together and walked into the parking lot, my car parked next to hers. Not a rental anymore. My car. My name on the registration. My life. Behind us, Hartwell Manufacturing kept running. Kate locked the car. We drove away.